All right, so here we are, week 4 of our program. And in this program, I do a lot of the warm-up in sitting or standing. If you're familiar with my class, feel free to lie on the floor in a face down or face up position. As you start to settle into your posture and your breath, if possible, breathe in and out through your nose. Let your body relax and just give yourself a little virtual high five for showing up for the class, taking the time to build a stronger version of yourself. This is very good for your health, and making it a priority is good for you. In this sitting position, I'm trying to get the breath nice and deep and not feel any elevation into my neck and shoulders. I'm sitting supported with my back on the chair. Just trying to relax in through my breath, lengthening the exhales if I can. After your next breath cycle, let's slowly transition to a version of flexion and extension. If you're on the floor, you're welcome to stay on the floor. You can come to standing and with a slight bend in your knees, start to roll forward and turn your arms in. Let your head be heavy, and then slowly roll through your back, taking some time to activate the hips a little bit, squeeze the hip muscles, and let the weight of your head open up your neck, your posture through your upper back. And now I'm turning my palms out. Take some time to think about going inch by inch, establishing the best forward flexion, internally rotating the arms, and the best extension, externally rotating the arms that you can. Most foundational posture. We're born in flexion. So the better you can establish your flexion and extension, the better all movements are going to be. As you come out of that, we'll take some time to wake up the feet a little bit, just opening the toes and weight shifting from one side to the other. Spring is feeling like it's in the air today, a little sunshine. And it's got me thinking about a lot of things, like spring cleaning for one, because the sunshine showed the dust on my windows. But anyway, that's for another time. Right now, we're focusing on ourselves, right? Okay, got to keep a sense of humor though. Using balance support if you need it. We go into some ankle mobility. So starting with pointing the toes away and then pulling the toes to the shin. Even something simple like a cue of pull the heel to the calf, push the heel to the floor, can change how the brain senses or directs the movement and can make it feel different. 3 to 5 of these and then switching sides. If you did this as a balance exercise, this might not be as effective for the ankle as it is when we hang on to something just using a little balance support. And now we can make the focus, the rotations and the flexion extension of the ankle. So that's why I've got a little bit of support here. Turning the ankle all the way in and all the way out. This is your ankle inversion and eversion. You can do it with your toes flexed, but also start to try with different angles. Toes pointed, and then sort of somewhere halfway in between. Just give yourself lots of different angles to try that inversion and eversion. And I'm just switching between my feet with the change of the movements. I point my toes, I get a nice little stretch feeling through the front side of my ankle. And then into the circles. Slight bend in your base leg, knee, spreading my toes as much as I can. A few circles in each direction, trying to keep the leg as still as possible. Switching sides. The movement of our ankle and how we react to the ground that we're walking on, if we're hiking or on grass, uneven pavement, we want to be able to have our ankle react to the ground and not take it in the ankle. If you have good ankle mobility, it's going to really improve your balance and decrease your risk of injury. So I'm just going from side to side and sort of taking my foot into a slight kickback position, taking a little longer with each step. You could do something like this with the chair, right? Trying not to overuse anything like the chair, but just fingertip on the chair is good. The squishier the surface is, the harder it is for you to get that feedback. So that's why I always take my mat and take it into my harder mat. I prefer this surface for my feet. And then from here, we'll go into some balance reaches. Now you can do the balance reaches into the air or to the back of the chair. That just happens to rhyme. So I take some time to connect my foot, find my posture, take a deep breath in, and slowly reach out, trying to keep my shoulder plane and my hip plane square. Coming back up, alternating sides. Again, just connecting my foot, opening my toes, getting that foot feel. Reach. Using the breath to support the movement with what I call intra-abdominal pressure is a good idea. It's going to give your pelvis a lot more support. So if you coordinate the breath in as you reach, keeping a little bit of intra-abdominal connection, and you can, I'm talking, so I'm rebreathing a little, but I take another breath in as I come up, and that really helps to stabilize the pelvis. After you've done your 3 per side, just take it into a squat stance, and we'll start to go through some squats. But don't let me rush you. I'm using the chair as a guide, so I'll give a few options. We'll go through about 5 squats. If you don't need the chair support, you're just pulling yourself down into a squat and coming back up, connecting with your feet off the corner of the chair. I've got that as a little safety. I can touch my hips on the chair and then stand back up. As you go into your squat, you want to make sure your back doesn't change under the movement. And when you get to the depth that you can control, it could be any depth, you can take a moment and just shift the weight to the left foot, to the right foot, find your center, and come back up. Sometimes when we have injuries or movement patterns that are not keeping us in balance, like we've got a tight hip, we might come down and shift to one side without really knowing it. So just practicing your squat and like going to the left and going to the right, and then know, okay, I'm not biased to either side, and coming out is helpful. Now for the hip hinge, it's somewhat similar. You just slide your hands down your thighs, and you can come into a hip hinge position and shift over to the left and the right. I meant it somewhat similar in that we could shift. The hip hinge and the squat are highly debated different movements. There's a squatty hinge and a hingy squat, and there's a squat and a hinge. But if you need the chair support, you can always put your hands on the chair and just sit your hips back and then come back up. In the hip hinge, the hips go back, the knees bend, but don't go forward like they do in a squat. So that's the difference. And the feet can be any width. They can be hip width, wider, toes can be straight or turned out. And in fact, I like to encourage people to try different widths over time. Next, we'll go into some extension reaches. Now, if you need wall support, you go over to a wall and you're going to reach up on the wall so you've got the wall to help guide you, and you can gently lift your heels and start to open up your fingers and reach for the roof. We'll go through 5 of these movements, trying to get some warm up in the shoulders, looking up gently, lifting the heels so you're using your feet. If the reach overhead felt too imbalanced, you can hang onto a chair and do it this way, or just take one arm up off the chair and come back down. Looks great. Going into about a minute of body weight squats now. So now we're adding a little bit more heat, a little bit more time. If you wanted to add load, you could grab a dumbbell or a kettlebell. You could do these body weight, taking something that I know I can squat for a minute so that I can show you that I can. All right, so here we go. And just any pace you want. You're just going to pull yourself into that squat position and come back out. So I've got my eye on my clock there, and let's go through some of the cues that I had talked about. Not shifting to the left and the right, so you're pulling yourself down center. We've done a lot of ankle mobility and footwork, so feel that connection with your feet. As you pull yourself down, breathe in. And as you exhale, breathe out. Let the core naturally recoil. Now try to have your toes connected but not scrunched. Inhale, exhale. I like to just kind of lengthen and connect my toes. I've got a history of toe scrunching, so this is a big deal for me to be able to do this without compensating with that toe scrunch. Last 5 seconds. Looking good. Okay, let's put the weight down for a second. We'll work on some shoulder mobility, and then we'll do a minute of hip hinges today. So let's take the shoulders up, back, down, forward. Do it again. Just kind of let the arms hang and be loose. Not holding tension in through the fingers. You can reverse the direction. Think about the shoulder blades moving together as you bring these shoulders back. Everything rises up, everything comes forward, and then down. Taking the arms to 90-degree position, let's do a few lateral flies where we're working the top side of our shoulders as we bring the elbows out, and then pull back down, open up, pull back down. You could go through, let's just say 5 to 8 of these, depending on how they felt for your shoulders. But if I just kind of went do, I wouldn't really be working. But if I'm like thinking about pulling through some water or sand and then creating some tension as I pull the elbows back to the sides. Second one, we'll go with palms up, and like we're serving platters. This is your classic external rotation. So I'm just taking my arms out and I'm feeling a little retraction of my shoulder blades in the back. But go off the classic, once you get that, to start to go into different angles and just use that tension cue, find an end range of something and hold it there for a second. Any angle will do. You can do both a little higher or on a diagonal. Good. One more and then we'll move on to our hinges. I'll open up my fingers, take my arms forward and try to get my elbows to touch. And when I do that, I get a little stretch through the back side of my shoulders. And then as I open, I can feel my shoulder blades coming together. While I do this, I'm trying to avoid this, so no shrugging. Reminds me of one time I was training a client and I was getting him to do something like this, like hands up. And I just happened to say, it was like there was no forethought in it. Have you ever been arrested? And his face went blank and he said yes. And then that opened up a whole can of worms that I don't think he ever thought he would be sharing with me, but it was all fun. It was in his past. All right, so there we go. So now hip hinging. If you want to do a minute of hip hinging body weight, it's going to look like this, right? I'm going to grab my other weight. So I have 2 dumbbells. And I'm going to do this at my own pace, just taking some time to sit my hips back as I breathe in and exhale, come up. If you do have the open hands, like 2 dumbbells, you can always rotate your palms open a little bit at the top. And that just gets a little bit more shoulder involvement. And then I bring my palms back to my thighs. You can think about sitting back evenly here. So if I wasn't sitting back even, you might see me shift, or my knees kind of come in, or one knee come in. So you've just got to think about sitting those hips back, and then stand up tall, activate your hip muscles. Would this be a good time to tell you I forgot to look at the clock? I think we're about halfway through. That's good. All right. Half a minute more. How's that sound? Twenty more seconds. Use those hips. Last 5 seconds. Always be mindful how you pick up and put down your weights. And then we'll go back to the extension reaches, just 5 of these. You can do in the air, feet hip width or wider. So if this is too hard, you're going to take your feet wider. If it's too easy, you go a little bit on the narrower side. One hand, other hand. Next up, we're going to our cross taps and push-ups. So elevated surface against a wall, you're going to come to a place where your hands are closer together and your feet are wider. You take one hand and cross the opposite shoulder, and then take your hands wider and do a little mini push-up. Okay, so it looks like this, hands together, feet wider, taking one hand off and tapping my opposite shoulder, and I'm holding my plank position as I do that. And then I take my hands wider and I pull myself in for a wall push-up. Bring my hands back to center. Good, nice plank position, so I'm not bent over, I've not got a rounded back. I'm a little bit up on my forefoot. My heels are lifted off the floor. Tap, tap, up to about 5 of these. Okay, just as you pull yourself into the wall, think about the movement of your shoulder blades. So you want them to come together like we did in that little shoulder blade warm-up. You want to create some tension as you pull yourself in, feel those shoulder blades come together, push your weight away from the wall, and apart they go. Squat and press is next, and in this one, today we'll go up to about 6 reps. If pressing overhead is not for you, then please just hold a weight at one side and squat only. So you're finding your squat position. The weight is on one side, so squat, stop, press, stop. And as you pull yourself down, keep going through that reminder of the even cues. Because when you have a weight on one side, this works your core on the opposite side, where gravity is kind of wanting to pull me down. So it's more work for my body to make this move, execute this move with fighting gravity. So I get more core training as I do this. Excellent. And switching sides. If you're ever doing an exercise and your sort of inner dialogue says, I don't know if I should be doing this, this doesn't feel good, then please stop. Listen to your body. This whole idea of making more progress when we listen to the signals. Pain is a signal. There's ways to work around bits of our body, bits and pieces of our body that give us pain from time to time, or for some of us, a longer period of time. There's so much that we don't have figured out with the movements and strength and conditioning, but we do have to keep moving. Okay, so that's really important. Now, shoulder cars with the option of doing it from a balanced position. So you're onto the front foot. Options for balance would be back foot off or just tapping the toe down. The wider you have your toe, the easier this is going to be, right? That base of support thing. Once you've picked your position, it's essentially just looking at taking the arms up, palms are facing each other, and spreading your fingers, not holding your breath. And as you bring your arms slowly around, work into the right side, work into the left side. Feel your shoulder blades, rotate the palms. Just exploring what you can get out of your shoulder movement. You could tap your hand up into the small of your back or to your opposite shoulder, and then slowly rewind this. Take your time, open up, try to work out anything that feels a little snappy by not working through pain, but just kind of sensing the space that you're creating or working.
Lost the sound, Sheila.
How's that? Yeah?
Good.
Better? Okay. Having a little trouble with this mic. So I'll just take it off and put it onto my other speaker. Okay, so that opens up another whole story. But anyway, sometimes customer service helps you and sometimes customer service does not. So now that we have the sound back, we'll go with our squat and press. Up to 6 per side, nice and even. Thank you, Shirley. You saved me. Electronics. Lovely when they work for you. Not so lovely when they don't. Switching sides, matching reps. Feel good, get that body moving like that, the heart pumping a little bit. Just opening things up. Okay, one more set of our cross taps and mini push-ups, full push-ups, elevated, can do on the floor if you're at that level. And then we move on. Hands together, feet wide. Nice strong plank position. I've activated my hip muscles a little bit. Cross, cross, wide, pull myself in, push away. Up to 5 of these. Feel free to take a little break in between repetitions if needed. Those feet wide and hands narrow. Got a good base of support for that tap, tap. Wonderful. Feel free to take a water break, grab a stretchy band. We'll start with just some pulls on the diagonal, about 6 pulls. My palms are up. I'm watching my posture, so I'm not locked out in my knees or my back. I'm floating my posture over my feet. There's a soft lock on my knees. They're not super bent and they're not hyperextended. Check that the tension is enough, that you've got some work going on between your shoulder blades, but not so that you're feeling this in your elbows, wrists, or neck. If it's too tight, it just doesn't do its magic. So after about 6 per side, we'll put the band to the side and start working on the reverse lunge. If you want to load your reverse lunge right now, you could grab some dumbbells. It's going to be 6 reverse lunges per side, and I'm going to go through some cues with the reverse lunge. So you want to step back nice and straight. Drop the back knee a little or a lot, digging in the back toes, and come back up to standing. If you need the balance support, all good. Just light touch, step back, get the toes figured out, and then drop the back knee. The front knee and the front foot are also quite important. You want to stay connected. You don't want the knee or the arch of the foot to collapse, right? And this has got lots of factors, but one of the factors that we can control is to try and create the movement with some support where the knee tracks the middle of the foot, but depending on the condition and strength of your hips and knees and ankles, it could be hard to just get this happening with body weight. Working up to loading, when you add the load, if something in your form changes, not for the better, then we shouldn't load. So just kind of meet yourself where you're at, sit back, drop the back knee a little or a lot, and come forward. Okay, we'll go back to the band pulls and do 6 on the diagonal. If you've been following this program for a few weeks now, probably get the sense that I don't do the exact same thing every week. So last week, I think I showed the diagonal pull and the reverse lunge at the same time. And that might work better for some people than others because it's sort of a high motor control exercise. Feel free to go back and look at other weeks of the training program, because on the lag, I do put them on YouTube, right? So a week later. So you can take a look at the programs, and if you feel like spicing it up a bit and doing something just a little bit different, that's how you do it. Okay, so I'll do a set of step back reverse lunges. First, I'm going to do a few without load to just talk about the front knee. So as you step back, if you drop the back knee and the front knee stays right over your ankle, this is probably the most knee-friendly way to do it. If you have a chair assist, you're to the side. As you get stronger, and if it's okay with your knees, you can let that front knee go forward a bit as opposed to just being upright. But be mindful that that's loading the knee, it's more pressure on the knee. So you want to have play with how much you load, and over time, just listen to the body, how that reacts down through, the day, 24, 48 hours after you train. Every step back doesn't have to be the same. So that one was fairly square with the knee right over the ankle. And here I am just pitching forward a little bit, and that feels okay. And I'll do the same on the other side. One kind of straight down, and one where I go a little bit forward. Okay, so we want to keep giving ourselves little challenges that create adaptations, positive adaptations in our strength and our muscles, our bones and stuff. Okay, moving on. We've got knees and squeeze. Now this is a similar hinge pattern to our minute of hinges, but when we're hinged over, now I'm going to row, elbows to the sides, and then with the straight arms, I'm going to stand back up. So it's sort of twofold. Hinge back, row evenly on both sides, stand back up to posture. When you row, be mindful that you're not shrugging into your neck, and try to think about the muscles that you're recruiting or using through the shoulder blade, part of your back and your underarms, and that can help to focus the control and the recruitment of the muscles you're trying to strengthen. Okay, so might as well stay focused on that and get more out of each rep. Speaking of reps, up to 10. If you have a heavier weight and you're getting fatigued, and you kind of know, that's enough, I'm going to call it at that. If the weight is on the lighter side, please go and finish off the 10 reps. Curtsy lunge is next. Curtsy lunge, you're taking one leg off, coming back, dropping the back knee and coming back up to standing. You can stay on one side, 5-6 reps. If you need support, come close to your support, cross over, drop the back knee a little or a lot, and come back up. It could just be a toe tap, okay? It doesn't necessarily have to go all the way down. Keeping your hips and torso sort of square to the wall in front of you. As you get more mobile in your hip and you have more strength, you can feel pulling yourself down and then driving yourself back up with control to that posture. I'll try a few on the other side, pulling myself down, back up to posture, staying nice and square, get my toes connected with the floor before I start to go down. Will help with the control that you have. Here, down, and up. Excellent. Okay, we'll do a set of that loaded shortly. Now we're going to do our walking farmer's carry where we transfer the weight, hand switching. This is super important. Pick up safely and think of a working weight that as you walk, you can carefully transfer between hands. Now take your time with this one and just feel out through your feet. If you don't happen to have a weight that's significant for this, then perhaps a recycle grocery bag with some things around the house, books, heavy books, tools, things like that can work really well. A bucket, right, where you've got a bucket full of some sand or some rocks. This is functional training. As you bring the weight to one side, the opposite side of your body is working so that I don't lean into that weighted side. So think about that and how functional the weight is that you're working with. I have a client that I'm working with who is coming off of a back injury and getting really strong. And she wants to start lifting her bike up onto her car to go riding. But her bike weighs significantly more than she's doing in her functional training so far. And so think about things that you do in your everyday life. Probably heard me say this before, but I believe there's a lot of core training in that fitted sheet. Putting a fitted sheet on that last corner, you know, it's very difficult, especially if you have to lift up the mattress and arm wrestle it in. Okay, so curtsy lunges with weight. Remember what I said before, if the form changes with load, right? Then you're not ready for the load. We want to build up our strength, our capacity for doing things in a nice training environment. How about your living room? But so that when you go out and do sports, activities, you never get injured because your capacity is strong. You are stronger than what you're asking yourself to do by lifting that bike on the car, right? So we decrease the risk of injury or re-injury, which is really a strong place for you to get re-injured. Your old injuries are always markers of your next injury if you're not properly reconditioned. So, you know, think about that. I think it's a very valuable part of your decision-making process. Let's do our carry again. When you pick up something, you like to hinge back. I like to hinge back. Take that breath in. Make sure I'm not hurting myself at all with the pickup or put down. But there is a place for some heavier loads. I feel like I'm focusing most on injury prevention, but there's a lot of other great things from a biology point of view that go on when you resistance train, not just in the bone density and the muscles, but hormonally, metabolically, so that's why when I said at the start, oh, this is good for your health, we know it is. So good on you again for showing up and getting some weight training in. So picking up and putting down the weight, very careful. And then we'll go back to one more of our knees and squeeze. Feel free to take a little water break if you need it. Sit back into the hips. Roll the elbows to the sides, straight arms. Stand up tall to posture. As you sit your hips back, your back should feel okay. You shouldn't be feeling any stress through your back. This is a true hip hinge. Hips go back. My shoulders are higher than my hips. My hips are higher than my knees. So I'm not looking for something like this where I'm completely bent over. I might risk putting more stress into my low back. Find a kind of comfortable sweet spot, row, and stand up. Row. That looks great. I'm going to take us through a little bit more of shoulder work, this time similar to the warm-up, but I'm going to use some 3-pound dumbbells. And if you have a little heavier and you feel like your shoulders can tolerate that, then go ahead and use something heavier. If you don't have weights that work, just use your body weight and create that tension, work the shoulder muscles up and tension down. I joked in something on my social media recently that I never thought I would use the light weights, that I was gifted by a friend, a little set of 2, 3, and 5 pounds. And I found so many uses for using the weights. And then another girlfriend of mine actually said, I love how you say meet people where they're at, because not everybody is ready for a 10 or 15 or a 25-pound dumbbell. And that's important, because if we break ourselves down, you guys aren't coming back to class, right? Okay, palms up. This is 3 pounds now. If the weights you have are too heavy for this, put them down, right? And then this was your classic external rotation. And then remember I said, let's go off the classic. The shoulders don't just work in one plane. There's so many different angles that we could train. Mathematically, probably too many to name. Go. And then I'm going to give my shoulders just a moment rest before I do the front fly and then finish with this. Now, if this didn't feel good because the shoulders were still feeling a little too fatigued, put the weights down, go body weight. And that does it. Now we have time to work on the chair lowers or the get up, your call. I'm going to show the chair lowers again today because I feel like this is the standing class, and after a couple more weeks of the standing class, I'll change it up again and we'll see what training looks like. But for now, if you know a full Turkish get up, please just go ahead and do the full get up practice, one per side. Here's the assisted chair lower. So I'm going to step with a split stance, and I'm going to slowly try to lower myself down to the pillows. And then check the angle of, is my heel too far in? Is this a lot of stress on my knee, right? You want everything to heel to be under the knee, back toe is tucked. Take a breath in and try to come up. Now you might need to use this a little or a lot. Ideally, the progression for this is no hands down. It's easier to lower. Take a breath, hands up. These are some of the things I see, which I would call out as far as sort of a movement, maybe a compensation. But a lot of times when the brain's saying stand up, you take the shoulders into it. So you see this, and even in the get up, people go, right? So you want to take your breath in, create your intra-abdominal support, and come up without having to use the momentum through the shoulders, because that can put a lot of stress on the neck. Switching the front foot. Okay, feel free to use this on the way down if you need it, maybe just some fingers. You could also put another chair or do this next to a table, so you've got both hands to bring you up. Breathe in, lower yourself down. Okay, now this is actually training to be able to get up and down from the floor more easily and do a get up, which is ultimately where I believe we all need to be working. And I just want to say that rep range, whatever feels okay, 3, 5, taking your time to go through this. Almost every day could be done, right? This is not loaded. Now I do see some people doing the full get up, and I'm impressed with that. I want to say that doing a get up a day body weight is a great way to never lose the ability to get up and down from the floor. So stick with us, and through the class, we'll continue to progress and refine the practice of the get up. I'm watching a few of you on the screen now, and I'm just smiling inside because this is really good. I want to thank you so much for building a stronger version of yourself with me today. Thank you again to Shirley there for letting me know that the mic had stopped working. I'll put a pause on the video and say goodbye.